It's May 15th. Welcome to yes2hellwith.com. Today we arrive at one of the most important episodes in this entire series about the unjust conviction of Orlando Carter. And the subject today, and we continue with it, Benjamin Glassman. The issue involving Glassman is fundamentally different from the conduct of Lockhart and Chema. Lockhart and Chema failed before conviction. They failed to conduct a competent and thorough investigation. Glassman encountered the contradiction years later. By this stage, the government already possessed information showing that the foundation of the prosecution's theory was collapsing or had collapsed. The OCC correspondence reflected no $4 million loan. Why? Because PNC showed that there was only one loan, which was much smaller and years earlier. And those records existed before the indictment was ever issued. When I met Benjamin Glassman and his assistant, Kenneth Parker, in their office in Cincinnati in 2018, Glassman had already received the OCC letter. I mailed it to him. He knew of the contradiction. Yet the moment Glassman entered the room, he stated that the DOJ had shredded evidence concerning the $4 million loan. But there was a major problem with that statement. Federal regulations prohibit destruction of records during ongoing litigation, and the Carter case was still active. The case was also less than 10 years old. They're not allowed to destroy records that are less than 10. So why would critical criminal evidence be destroyed? After Glassman made that statement, I handed him the OCC letter again and told him the evidence could not have been shredded because it never existed. Glassman said nothing. Glassman had an opportunity to stop, re-examine the case, and confront the contradiction directly. But no. Instead, he preserved the unjust criminal conviction. I later filed a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request, with the Executive Office of United States Attorneys. This office responded by stating that there were no records showing destruction of evidence concerning any $4 million loan. That response created yet another contradiction. If the records were shredded, where were the destruction logs? Where are the retention records? Where is the chain of custody? And the contradiction becomes even worse. PNC later stated it never asserted a $4 million loan existed. So now the question becomes unavoidable. How could the DOJ destroy authenticated records proving a $4 million loan obligation if the bank itself never asserted such a loan existed? This is why I state that Benjamin Glassman lied. Benjamin Glassman, you are a liar. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't confusion. It was a lie. There was no $4 million loan. There was no evidence of the loan to be shredded in the first place. Now, the OCC findings and the PNC records and the response from the Executive Office of the United States Attorneys prove this. There is no destruction of any evidence. These facts cannot be reconciled honestly, and that is what makes this episode so serious. Because the issue is no longer whether mistakes occurred during an investigation. The issue is whether a United States attorney encountered evidence undermining the prosecution itself and chose institutional protection over truth. Under Berger versus United States and Rule 3.8, prosecutors are supposed to pursue justice. Glassman had the opportunity to reopen the inquiry, reconcile the contradictions, and reassess the case, and to move forward with exonerating and releasing Carter. He did not do this. The conviction became the thing being protected, not the truth. And this is where the Orlando Carter story becomes far larger than one man. Because once institutions begin protecting outcomes instead of examining contradictions, the justice system itself becomes dangerous, very dangerous. And that brings us directly to Glassman's assistant at the time, Kenneth Parker, who later became United States Attorney. Because Parker, as United States Attorney, inherited the OCC findings, the Executive Office of United States Attorney response, the PNC records, and the structural contradictions surrounding the case. Yet the prosecution narrative continued. It was preserved. In the next episode, we'll talk about Parker. And as always, may truth reign supreme.